This film is set in a time when mutants and strange humans are starting to appear everywhere.
Let's have some fun.
You don't know just one of.
The story begins by introducing a woman named Amanda Waller, who has been appointed to handle national security. In a meeting with a general, Amanda explains that to deal with the rising number of supervillains, it takes villains to fight villains. That's why Amanda has formed a project called Task Force X, which consists of several supercriminals. First up is Floyd, aka Deadshot, a man with the ability to shoot with pinpoint accuracy. He has never missed a shot in his entire life. Second, there's Harley Quinn, a former psychiatrist who became obsessed with her own patient, none other than the sinister clown himself, the Joker. Harley was manipulated to the point where she helped Joker escape from prison.
Oh, Monica. Really?
You think so?
I wouldn't want you to break those.
Third, we have Captain Boomerang, a man obviously skilled in throwing the traditional Aboriginal weapon. He used his unique talents to rob multiple banks across America.
Target set with others.
Fourth is a crocodile-like man named Jones, a result of genetic mutation. In one meal, he can devour at least 100 kilograms of goat meat. Fifth, and in my personal opinion the coolest of them all, is a fire-controlling ex-gang leader from Mexico known as El Diablo. He was once so brutal that he burned down an entire prison yard full of inmates. After accidentally killing his beloved wife, El Diablo surrendered himself to the police. Last, and arguably the least important, is an archaeologist named Dr. Moon, who accidentally unleashed something that should have never been opened, a metahuman from another dimension, better known to us as Enchantress. She possessed Dr. Moon and gave her extraordinary supernatural abilities. Amanda Waller managed to discover her weakness, Enchantress's heart, which Waller keeps in a special briefcase. It is through this heart that Dr. Moon, aka Enchantress, can be controlled and forced to obey Waller's orders. To lead and coordinate this squad of misfits, Amanda also recruits the best soldier available, Colonel Rick Flag, who just so happens to be romantically involved with Dr. Moon. This relationship makes it even easier for Waller to control them both. Long story short, Waller and Rick head to the facility where these 6 criminals are imprisoned.
Are you?
Darren, you got visitors, man.
Rick only wants to meet Floyd to test his shooting skills. He asks Floyd to choose one of several guns laid out in front of him. But instead, Floyd points the gun at a prison warden who had been abusing him.
Hey, Al! Briggs, tell your men to stand down.
Colonel, for the record.
The terrified warden orders his guards to shoot Floyd if he dares pull the trigger, and even demands they delete his Google search history too. Of course, Floyd proves that he is the most accurate marksman on the planet. He then states a list of demands if Waller wants him to join Task Force X, but Waller declines them all, already having her own methods to force Floyd and the others into submission. Meanwhile, somewhere else we see the Joker brooding over his girlfriend Harley Quinn's fate. One of his henchmen informs him that someone on the inside might be able to help. The prison warden who happens to have a gambling addiction and a mountain of debt at a casino. The Joker, known as the King of Crime, uses this to his advantage and begins planning Harley's escape. At the same time, Enchantress suddenly breaks free from Dr. Moon's body and teleports to Waller's location, trying to get close to the suitcase containing her heart. But the case is equipped with an advanced sensor that triggers an explosion if Enchantress gets too close. So instead of reclaiming her heart, she takes a small ancient idol that houses her brother's spirit. She then heads to a subway station and possesses a random man, using him as a new body for her brother, Incubus. As a result, Incubus is revived and starts wreaking havoc across New York City. Waller's trump card, Enchantress's heart, is now useless since Incubus has shared his power with her. No matter how many times Waller stabs the heart, Enchantress no longer feels the pain. But that doesn't mean the heart is entirely useless. Now empowered by Incubus, Enchantress begins building a massive machine meant to turn everyone into her personal army. This incident caused massive chaos across the United States and quickly escalated into a national threat. As a result, the general and other top government officials agreed to call in Amanda Waller and activate her Task Force X project.
Raiden, all right? This is me being cool.
Under extremely tight security, each of these high-level criminals was taken out of their cells one by one to be injected with a high-tech chip implanted into their necks. Floyd and the rest of the gang were transported to a military base near the danger zone to join the soldiers stationed there. It turns out there would be an additional member joining them, a guy named Slipknot, who has the ability to climb literally anything, which only made Colonel Rick Flagg's job of managing this team of misfits even harder. Floyd and the rest of the squad were then allowed to use their personal items, such as weapons and signature outfits. And of course, Harley Quinn couldn't resist grabbing everyone's attention by changing her clothes right in front of everyone. Back at HQ, Waller began briefing them on the mission. They were to enter the Red Zone, the center of the threat, and rescue a high-value individual trapped inside. If they succeeded, they would get a reduction in their prison sentences. But if they tried to kill Colonel Rick, the explosive chips implanted in their necks would be detonated immediately. Right before departure, another teammate joined the squad, Rick's partner, Katana. As her name suggests, Katana wields a katana sword that can slice through anything.
Harley Quinn, nice to meet the stench of death.
Easy, cowgirl.
Upon arrival above the Red Zone, the squad's aircraft was suddenly attacked, forcing them into an emergency landing far from their intended drop zone. Once on the ground, they immediately began heading toward the target location. That's when Captain Boomerang, who was skeptical about the explosive chips in their necks, tried to manipulate Slipknot into making a run for it, just to test if the threat was real. Sure enough, the chips were very real and could be triggered remotely. So, after Slipknot's abrupt demise, the rest of the squad thought twice about trying to bail on the mission. When they arrived at the location, they encountered civilians who had already been transformed into black, cursed monsters. As Floyd stepped forward to take a shot, Rick and the other soldiers told him to stand down and stop acting like a hero. El Diablo also refused to fight, still haunted by the time he accidentally burned an entire prison yard full of inmates. He was afraid of hurting people again. But when a second wave of monsters appeared, Floyd, realizing he didn't want to die in this cursed place, stepped up and took them all out by himself. Meanwhile, at the center of the Red Zone, Enchantress and her growing monster army had just captured a squad of soldiers who were deployed earlier. It turns out these monsters were actually transformed humans under Enchantress's control. Back with Floyd and the team, they finally reached the building where their target was supposedly trapped. At this point, Harley began acting out again. She took the elevator up alone. But her real reason was to send a text to her beloved Joker, who was already on his way to rescue her. She managed this thanks to a secret phone given to her by the prison warden, the same one who agreed to Joker's deal in exchange for clearing his gambling debts. This is where the real tension begins. The monsters start pouring in, non-stop. Even Floyd, who had earlier looked like the hero of the day, now found himself overwhelmed. Frustrated, he glanced over at El Diablo, who so far seemed like the most useless member of the team, and began taunting him with harsh words to provoke him. And just like that, everyone fell silent, visibly shaken. Even Floyd, who had been trying to trigger him, looked nervous. But El Diablo kept his cool, showing impressive self-control in the face of everyone's annoying behavior.
That shit crazy.
Once they arrived at the target location, Rick asked Floyd and the others to wait outside while he went in alone to a secure bunker where the target was hiding. But then, surprise, surprise, it turns out the person they were supposed to rescue was none other than Amanda Waller herself, who had accidentally gotten trapped there and used Floyd and the gang just to bail her out. Feeling betrayed, the squad considered just taking her out then and there. But of course, Waller had already planned for that. She had a phone in hand, ready to activate the explosive chips in all their necks. When they reached the rooftop, the extraction chopper refused to land, and suddenly, boom, the aircraft had already been hijacked by the Joker. He had hired a professor to hack into the explosive chips, allowing Harley to walk straight toward the chopper without worrying about getting blown up by Waller. Here, Floyd faced a dilemma. Waller ordered him to shoot Harley or she'd be killed. Left with no choice, Floyd pretended to follow orders, but in reality, he didn't shoot her.
It's Waller.
Anything for you. Bargain around waiting.
Because Floyd disobeyed, Waller ordered another team to shoot down the helicopter. As Joker and Harley tried to jump out, they were accidentally separated mid-air. Harley fell and survived, but Joker went down with the exploding chopper. Waller was picked up by a different helicopter and was ready to head home. But out of nowhere, she was ambushed by Incubus, causing the chopper to crash. She was ultimately captured and brought before Enchantress, who forced her to hand over the suitcase containing her heart. With Waller presumed dead, Floyd and the others decided they were done with the mission. Rick couldn't do anything about it, and they all ended up chilling at a bar, drinking and taking a break. There, El Diablo finally opened up about his tragic past, how he accidentally killed his wife and kids because he lost control of his emotions. Soon after, Rick showed up and smashed the phone that controlled the explosive chips, freeing the squad. He also showed Floyd a stack of letters from his daughter, letters that had never been delivered to him. That was the final push Floyd needed. Realizing he wanted to make his daughter proud, he chose to help Rick save Waller from Enchantress. As they approached Enchantress's location, they scoped out the area and came up with a plan. Send Killer Croc and a few soldiers underground to plant explosives while the rest would act as a distraction and face Enchantress head-on. That's when Incubus showed up to block their path. His power was clearly on another level, far beyond what any of them could handle.
GQ, come in, we're in position. We gotta get him there.
But this was El Diablo's moment. He finally unleashed his true power, surrounding Incubus in an inferno of fire. Still, it wasn't enough. So when El Diablo was thrown back, he got serious. He transformed into a literal fire demon, finally overwhelming Incubus in a true one-on-one showdown. Even then, Incubus wouldn't go down easy. So Diablo, not wanting to see his teammates die, made the ultimate sacrifice. He asked Rick to detonate the explosives, taking himself and Incubus out once and for all. With the big boss down, it was time for the final showdown, Enchantress. Rick told the squad that her weakness was her heart, so Harley played her part, pretending she wanted to join Enchantress's army. But it was just a ruse. Harley was only trying to grab Katana's sword and rip out Enchantress's heart. Wasting no time, Killer Croc tossed explosives at Enchantress. Floyd followed up with a perfect shot, blowing up the magical machine and destroying it for good. Enchantress was still alive, but now vulnerable, reduced to a puppet of whoever held her heart. Tired of all the magic nonsense, Rick crushed the heart with his bare hands, breaking the curse and bringing Dr. Moon back to her human form. Just when they thought it was all over, Floyd and the squad were shocked by the reappearance of Waller, alive and well, still holding the trigger to the explosive chips. So yeah, back to prison they went, with a slight reduction in sentence, just as Waller had promised. As for Floyd, he was given a small reward, a chance to spend a little time with his beloved daughter before being sent back to prison, along with the rest of the super criminal squad. And in the final scene, we see the prison wall being blown open by a group of unknown attackers, breaking in to free Harley from her cell. Turns out, it was none other than the Joker himself, who somehow survived the helicopter crash, and that's how the movie ends. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.